Do you remember The Rum Diary with Johnny Depp?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you remember The Legend of Tarzan with Alexander Skarsgård and Margot Robbie? And do you remember Snake Eyes, the G.I. Joe origin story with Henry Golding that came out in 2021?
No.
Absolutely.
I thought you meant like...
Big budget bomb, that was.
Yeah. What was quite funny is that like, I had these bad headaches, you know, like when you're achy and shivery, like a sort of viral infection or whatever it is. It's really horrible. And I have these like headaches that could be like sinus headaches, like behind the eyes and this. And I've got to Monday and I've not had a coffee for like 48 hours now.
Right.
And I'm thinking like, oh, these headaches, I just can't. And I'm starting to feel better on the Monday. And I just go, oh, you know what, I'll make myself a coffee. I have a sip of coffee. Headache's gone.
Yeah.
Headache's just completely gone. I was like, oh, I'm actually just an addict to caffeine as well as being sick, and I probably should have had caffeine. But yeah, I had two mums bring me soup.
Nice.
I had my mum bring me soup, and then Tally's mum brought me a chicken soup.
You well looked after. I didn't bring you anything, I'm sorry. But
No,
I sent you well wishes, and we pushed the recording, didn't we?
I know, we did. This is actually the day it's meant to go out. We've had to push things.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry if things were late. It's a good thing I got to see All of Us Strangers before I fell. Yes, I tried to watch Masters of Air like closed with my face smushed on a pillow, like through a slit in my eye vision. I was like, "This looks good," and I think it deserves two eyes.
When I'm well.
Yeah,
Okay,
Austin Butler looking very dashing, and he looks like he's ready to shoot a watch commercial on a runway.
Yeah, you know,
sort of
when I see the advert for Masters of the Air, it reminds me that someone once said to me that when the perfect description of the word handsome, or the perfect application of that word handsome, is, can you imagine that person as like an RAF pilot?
Right, yeah.
And so like handsome and dashing, both words, that's like what you imagine them in the shearling jacket leaning up against the Spitfire.
With their friends.
Like, that's handsome. So like, I don't know, I have something, like Paul Mescal. Is Paul Mescal handsome? I don't know if you describe him as handsome, attractive, sexy, good looking.
I can imagine
Would
him
you describe him as handsome?
You know, I can imagine him like in a little white t-shirt with the cigarettes rolled up into the
into the very
cuff.
American, I see.
Yeah,
or a boiler suit, maybe.
Well, the sort of
with
Navy aesthetic or Navy Army military aesthetic in cinema is quite American. They do love to kind of make films about it.
Yeah, I think that's because, I don't know, I could go into it and I realised I've not been ill, but I made the mistake yesterday evening. I was just telling James I met up with a friend for some drinks, haven't seen them in a while, didn't have any dinner, and I drank 3 martinis. Three. You're not meant to do them. You're not meant to chase them with another one.
2 is cheeky.
2 is really cheeky.
3 is like, are we okay?
I mean, and I'm getting, it's the morning and I'm okay.
Oh, my mum's calling me. You keep going.
And I've got some peppermint tea, but my goodness. And there was a point last night when I thought, I don't know where this is going to go. I don't know where this is going.
You just text me and you're like, I'm in Bangkok, man.
Yeah. 3 martinis. You never do 3 martinis. But anyway, we are here and we are recording. And actually, I have something that I'd like to discuss. So several listeners to the show sent me a link to this last week. And it was about tea. And as you know, if you're a new listener to the show, you'll know that, you won't know, but tea is a regular conversation topic here because I'm boring and I bring it up all the time. So people sent me this because
what are you drinking today?
I'm drinking peppermint tea because I've already had 2 caffeine teas and peppermint's nice and soothing. I won't be drinking any martinis anytime soon. This US scientist believes that adding salt to a cup of tea is the key to make a perfect tea, which was, outrage across Britain. Thought pieces, articles written, people losing their minds. I'm pretty sure there was a riot.
Rishi Sunak outside the Commons having to comment on it.
I've heard about, I've heard. No, that's
it's really quite extraordinary.
Rishi's kind of like...
You can't put salt in a tea.
Rishi is, if you ever see that, I think we might have talked about this on the show before, when he gets interviewed by the kids and he talks about how he loves Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
High fructose corn syrup. He has that kind of list. High fructose. So he'd be like, tea and salt. Well, I
am a Coke addict.
Because he's trying to pretend to be a normal person.
Yeah.
Well, I don't drink tea. Mr. Sunak, we have to leave now. Thank you very much. People think you're actually weird. Yeah. Anyway, so she says, this scientist explains that salt added to a cup of tea in a tiny amount, a pinch, less than a pinch even. The salt acts as a blocker to the receptor, which makes tea taste bitter, especially when it has been stewed. By adding a pinch of table salt, an undetectable amount, you will counteract the bitterness of the drink. She says it's not like adding sugar. People think they're afraid they will be able to taste the tea. She urges tea-loving Brits to be open-minded before prejudging her research. She also adds that to make the perfect cup of tea, she recommends using loose leaves over tea bags. Everyone knows that.
Yeah.
That's classic. Giving the drink a constant stir so the tea gives good exposure to the water and milk. Yes, we know that. Adding a squeeze of lemon juice can also remove the scum that appears on the surface of the drink. She also suggests making it in short, stout mugs, which I believe this would be a kind of one, to keep the tea hotter, and warming up the mug. I've said that. I've always said that. With the and then
Especially
only
in
add
winter.
the milk in after pouring the tea. Well, she's making it in a teapot. She also says don't heat the water up in a microwave. No, I would never do that. That's criminal. But I would reheat it. If my tea's gone a little bit cold, I think it's okay to put it in the microwave for like 5 seconds.
Would you ever like one of those
research.
like heating mugs, like ember mug?
What, that heats itself?
It stays warm. You set the temperature you like your tea at, and it keeps it warm. Yeah, maybe. For
I
your
think
birthday,
I don't
if you're
think
good.
about those as like it's all a bit new tech.
Yeah,
It's all a bit. I like classic things.
like an analog cup. What's wrong with a good old cup?
Yeah, I mean, how can you can over design a mug? I think okay. I don't.
They've done it.
I mean, they really have.
Yeah.
I remember I used to work in an office where they it was like an over designed bin. And you'd go to
Oh, God,
basically
that's so
it
annoying.
was you go to open and it would like self open and self close, but
And it never does
it would
right.
never synchronize.
And then the mechanism breaks, and everyone just has to like with their little finger.
yeah,
Get
and I'm
under
like,
it. Yeah.
who needed this? We were
Yeah.
a pedal bin. A
Yeah.
pedal bin was fine.
Pedal was fine.
Anyway.
Mechanical. Yeah.
Simple.
In Japan, they love. It's very clean in Japan, from what I hear. I've not been, but they have 7. You know how like in the UK you get 2, sometimes 3 different holes for bins. You get like a general recycling and maybe like a paper and card one. They have like 7 of them, and they're like hyper segregated for bins.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, we had quite a few at work, and it was we had waste, recycling, glass, other types of plastic, and crisp packets. One
specifically for crisp packets.
Like, it's very British. Can you put your crisp packets in there, please? Everyone come back from lunch after the Tesco meal deal.
I feel like that's not for recycling. I feel like that's just one guy who likes to collect crisp packets. He's like, I'll take them.
Yeah, I'll take
There's
them.
like one British guy's like, yeah, I've got all the Walkers.
Irons out the Quaver
irons them,
packets.
makes like little quilts out of all the packets.
Someone's done it.
I like always seeing the change in design from, because you forget, like you take a Walker's crisp packet, how much that design iterates bit by bit over the years. And then you look at like a crisp packet from 1992 and it's got such a different like skeuomorphic 3D popping out design, and everything now is incredibly 2-dimensional, neutral,
Depixelized.
plain, depixelized. The Pringles moustache now has like no detail in it. It's just the swoosh. Whereas before it was like bristles.
It was a
and
full
had
personality.
crisps in it. Yeah.
That man had a life.
Yeah,
Mr.
Now he's
Pringle.
just like this very sort of Wall-E-esque animation. Yeah.
Welcome to episode 113
13,
of Pulp Kitchen. Last week we reviewed.
Oh God, Georgia.
It was a long time ago. Hang on.
It was The Kitchen.
The Kitchen and The End We Start From.
Thank you.
Go listen to that if you haven't. We also put out 2 bonuses last week.
We did,
the
yeah.
bonus
A lot of
about
people
our
loving the Oscar one.
reaction to the Oscars, and we also put a bonus out with our conversation with James from Raiders of the Lost podcast.
Apologies for the bad audio on that. I did my best to fix most of it, and I promise you it's not as bad for most of the episode, but there are a couple of times where it did just spike. I'm sorry, it was set too high. But
we were recording in a new environment, so it was some teething issues, so please bear with us for that. But
still
week,
a great episode. Definitely go and check it
Yeah,
out.
it
James
was good fun.
from Raiders of the Lost podcast was lovely.
and I hope you've been checking us out on Instagram and TikTok as normal, because we've been posting new videos
New
with the
content.
film bites, interviewing people in the street, which is quite fun.
More of those to come.
But this week we are reviewing 2 exciting films. We've got Society of the Snow, which a lot of people have. It's been like a word of mouth.
Requested.
Yeah, a lot of people requested it. I've heard a lot of people talking about it. People asking when are you going to do Society of the Snow, which is on Netflix at the moment. We'll be doing that, and we'll also be doing very much the film at the moment, which is All of Us Strangers, which we did review about 3 months ago when I saw it
check
at the
that
London
out.
Film Festival. That's episode 98, I want to say. Go check that out there. But we're also going to do it in the main episode this time because it is very much the film at the moment. James has been to see it.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of emails about it. So we'll be talking about it. We'll be talking about it in non-spoiler terms in this episode. and we'll probably do a bit of spoiler detail in the bonus episode for later this week. That's what we're doing. Look at that, a bumper episode. So let's do Society of the Snow, which, like I said, it kind of came onto Netflix at the beginning of January, and I think it's become this kind of word of mouth spreading hit. It's been nominated for Best International Feature at the Oscars this year, so very much current film. It is showing in some cinemas, but like I said, predominantly on Netflix. Directed by J.A. Bayona, who did The Impossible, A Monster Calls, The Orphanage, and less great, Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom, but fine.
I don't even remember what happened in that.
Yeah, they took it back home. They had an auction. They had a dino auction, didn't they? And the dino's in the house. Yeah. Anyway, James, do you know much about Society of the Snow before I describe it?
Only just sort of drips and drabs since the film has been a thing. But I don't know the story, no.
So it's based on an incredible true story. And I will say that I knew elements of this story. There's a particularly sort of infamous element to this story, but I did not know all the details, and I'm glad I didn't, because even though I knew significant details of the story, the film divulged so much more information and I was still shocked and surprised. So however much you know, don't know anymore, I would say, stop. And if you know nothing about the story, I'm going to give you a very objective, unspoilerific précis, but then you can go into the film without it. So, story previously adapted into a movie in the 1990s with an American cast, but now made with Uruguayan and Argentine actors, a lot of whom this is their debut film. So, takes place in October 1972. Follows predominantly the team of a Uruguayan rugby group, people in their early 20s. They make up about 20 of 45 people on a flight from Montevideo in Uruguay to Santiago in Chile in October 1972. It's a true story. The plane flight, this sort of propeller, biprop plane, whatever, flies... that's not biprop, is it? I don't know. I don't know my planes.
That's so the way you said it, I was like, that's not true.
A plane, but it has... Whatever. It's a plane.
Spinny bits.
A plane flies over the Andes in order to get to Chile, encounters severe difficulty, and ends up crash landing on a glacier in the middle of the Andes.
Like the worst nightmare.
There's a really quite terrifying, one of the most terrifying plane crash sequences I've seen in a long time, in which the plane is severed in two. That's what happens. The film strikes, the plane strikes a ridge. The rear of the plane is removed, and then the fuselage rockets down and comes to settle in this glacier in the middle of the Andes. And of the 45 people on board, you have about 30 survivors, sort of huddled together in this fuselage. And, they are in a place where there is no life, and life is not meant to survive. There is no vegetation. There are no animals. The actual place that the glacier they landed on did not have a name at the time because no one had been there. They are in the middle of the desolate, remote Andes region, okay? Their plane is...
sorry, glacier, they're like literally on a body of ice.
They're on a... yes, but that's not like... It's not like they're... stepping over crevasses within this sort of... imagine that they are on top of a glacier, but it's covered in snow. So,
okay, fine.
So it's basically just a selection of Earth. But they, the plane, which itself is white, is in this limitless expanse of white snow. They are... Some of the people had never seen snow before. They were young guys from Uruguay. They'd never actually seen snow before, and they find themselves stuck there. So the film then follows their efforts to survive after the plane crash. They found themselves having survived the plane crash. They need to then survive. And like I said, that's just the bare amount of detail, and go in knowing only that really. So the first thing to say, it's the story that is incredible,
really,
genuinely incredible.
Oh, really
and
sold.
Even knowing what I know about the story, there are things that happen in it. I thought, oh my God, there are things that are harrowing and bleak and terrifying, but also magnificent as well. And I watched it at home on Netflix, but in a way I really wish I'd seen it in the cinema, because sequences such as the plane crash sequence at the beginning and some of the environmental conditions that happen on the glacier, is just genuinely terrifying. I think the film has this really, it really understands the the sublime power and sublime situation they find themselves in. What I mean by sublime is like it's shot genuine. It's actually shot where the plane crash happened in the Andes, and you're in this beautiful mountain range. I mean, you've got clear blue sky constantly, and you've got these awesome, just staggering, the beautiful stillness and power of nature all around you, which is beautiful. But at the same time, for the very same reasons that it's beautiful, it's completely terrifying because it is so remote and desolate. And I think the film really captures that well. You have gorgeous shots of sunshine reflecting off the fuselage, and moments of conversation between the survivors. But my goodness, it's also absolutely terrifying, which I think that's really, really that's a really clever way the film leans into that. It's like it captures it in a way that you're like, this is almost not Earth. This is a plane of existence far removed from mankind.
Might as well be another planet.
It literally might as well be another planet. It's almost like a divine level. It's like purgatory, hell even. Really, really strange. And really, that's a really strength of the film. It's about the precariousness of life, but also the perseverance of life. It is 2 hours and 20, but absolutely fills that runtime. When I sat down to watch it, I thought that's quite a long. I don't know how it's going to fill it, but then very quickly I realised that it could do it easily. I think the thing is that the film also at about 40 minutes into the film arrives at a moral and ethical dilemma, which is very, very famous to this story. And I think the way that the film handles that, and then subsequent things to do with that, with this story, I think was really sensitive and respectful, but also gripping and compelling. And I think it was able to engage you in the story without feeling like it was exploiting the events of what these people went through. It gets under your skin. It's cold and it's bleak, and after you finish it, you will find yourself returning to it in your mind and finding it hard to shake and thinking, my God, but what about that? What about that? And there is a moment towards the end of the film where the film executes something that it has kind of been building up towards for like 2 hours and 20. And like J.A. Bayona understands the gravity of that moment, and the way, there's just one particular shot, the way it's done, it is a soaring moment that I was like, that is pure cinema right there. It is like why we enjoy stories, and it delivers something that you just feel it almost in your body. You go, oh, what a brilliant moment of cinema that was for understanding exactly what that moment needed to happen. I think it was great. So I think it's a really, really gripping, solid, respectful telling of an incredible story that's beautifully shot, and just even now when I think about the story, I just think, my God, it's yes, it's bleak, but it's enduring, and it's despite the bleakness of the situation, like it is also about the bonds between them, and trying to survive in this place where survival is not possible. Society of the Snow. Check it out. I think it'd be worth your time.
Full thumbs up from George.
Yeah, I think so.
You sold me.
I really
sold
do.
Me. I really like it when a true life story about something sort of about adversity or tragedy captures that really in a very appropriate way that also manages to get an emotional beat out of it. Like, remember we both thought 13 Lives was a really competent film that was very gripping and very dry as well, but in a way that felt very like sincere and matter of fact to the truth of that story. I wonder if sort of in a similar way that would kind of feel like it was also having an artistic integrity. And remember, like, the respect for how they would have shot the cave sequences in 13 Lives. It was like, that's so good to capture that and communicate it on screen effectively.
I think
which would have been lost on the news, I think.
Yeah, and I was thinking about 13 Lives afterwards, because I think that's a good film that not enough people saw. Yeah, because it was dumped.
I recommend it
Amazon,
quite a lot.
I think, instead of really getting a good release.
Great performances like Viggo Mortensen, Joel Edgerton in there.
That's a great, and again, that's a really great story. And I think Society of the Snow is like 13 Lives, but I wouldn't say the stakes are high, but the stakes were high with 13 Lives. But it's like the conditions are just. It's like they've turned it up to extreme. It's just everything that can
you totally sold me.
Oh, good.
I'm so glad it didn't. That wouldn't cross me by, because we've sort of spoken about it's really hard even for us to try and keep a pin on all of the films that are coming through. Like we rely on recommendations from you guys and from each other. But yeah, great, guys. Do we have an email from Society?
I don't think we do.
That's fine. Guys, if you wanted to send your thoughts about Society of a Snow, and if you agree with George or disagree with George, please send your thoughts in to hello@pulpkitchenpodcast.com. We would love to hear from you on the show.
James, I'm so excited because you've finally seen All of Us Strangers, which I've been kind of drip feeding, talking and mentioning about on the show ever since I saw it. And I will say, I think even in a way I might have undersold it in the sense that ever since I saw it back in October, it really did stay in my mind. And I'm really keen to hear your thoughts.
I feel like it's a film that, is it to our taste?
To our taste?
Yeah, because I feel like I'm surprised, having seen this, that Andrew Scott wasn't nominated for.
It's criminal.
Academy Award.
I think it's absolutely criminal.
Like,
in particular for a BAFTA.
So many great nominees up there, but I'm like, that performance I'll get into my review, but that performance belongs right up there with the rest of them. Everyone in it is great. It's a four-piece between four of my favourite actors working right now, literally.
And also Andrew Haigh, the director, has literally said, he's like, yeah, all the performances are great, because crucially Claire Foy and Paul Mescal have been nominated for BAFTAs, but Andrew Scott hasn't. And Andrew Haigh was like, he makes the film.
He's so good.
It doesn't work without Andrew Scott.
Snub.
It's complete snub. Really
People
criminal.
are talking about Ryan Gosling, Barb. It's just nonsense.
Absolute nonsense.
This is the. I can't believe it.
I know.
I don't know what. I mean, I'm sure Andrew Scott's going to be fine. He'll have plenty of good roles. But I'm like, if you're not getting it for this, do you think it's release date? Do you think it's?
I think
because it's a kind of film that does usually get awards attention.
I think it's more that I can understand him not being nominated for an Oscar more, only because it's like, in the US, that film is probably a much smaller release than it is here. It's not got...
Andrew Scott's not a big US
He's
name.
not a big US name. Even the other actors, like Paul Mescal was able to get a nomination for After Sun last year, and I thought we'd be able to do the same thing here, but he is a big name. But Andrew Haigh isn't as great, a bigger director over there. I think it's sad, but I'm like, the lobby for All of Us Strangers is probably smaller.
Yeah.
Whereas in the UK, Andrew Scott is a household name. Everyone knows who Andrew Scott is.
Brilliant.
Paul Mescal, obviously, everyone knows, and
So
Claire Foy and
right
Jamie
now.
Bell as well. And you know, at the BAFTA nominations, it got nominated for Best British Film, Best Director, Best Supporting Actor, Best Supporting Actress. And I do not understand how it can receive recognition for all those things, but not.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, that you have a film like Rustin, which I've not seen, and Coleman Domingo has been nominated for his performance in that. Now, don't get me wrong, I've not seen it. I love Coleman Domingo, good actor.
Yeah.
But what I find so bizarre is that film had absolutely no chatter in
From
the
our
UK.
perspective, no.
That film completely passed everyone by. When the BAFTA
weird,
nominations
isn't
came
it?
out, I have friends who follow film, and they were like, what the hell is a Rustin? What is that? And it turned out that film came out in November. And I do not understand, for a film like it's got nothing to do with the release dates, because, like I said, it's been recognised in other categories. So it's
important to remember, to not over hyperfixate on the Academy Awards.
No.
They are not the be all end all of what is good in cinema. But anyway, snub.
Absolutely.
Major snub. All of Us Strangers, as George said, reviewed it a few weeks ago when he saw it at the London Film Festival. So go and check out his review if you haven't already. Directed by Andrew Haigh, based on a novel called Strangers by the Japanese writer Taichi Yamada. If I told you these four actors were playing in a theatre in London, the tickets were £200, I would not need to ask you what play it was. I'd just be like 100%. Yes, it's a four-piece, it's an intimate family drama. Blah. I'm like, done, sold.
Yeah.
Anytime you would just kill to be with any of those actors. I love them all. Stars Andrew Scott as Adam, Paul Mescal, Jamie Bell, and Claire Foy. So Andrew Scott plays Adam, he plays a very isolated screenwriter, and the sort of film opens with him gazing lustfully over a very hazy London. He's very sort of isolated, and he's distant from this London, and he's in this sort of very slightly stale tower block where it doesn't really seem like there's anyone else who lives there, and he's sort of struggling to write or to find inspiration for his writing, and he starts to write something. And as this happens, two major things happen to him. One is that he slowly develops a new relationship with his neighbor Harry, played by Paul Mescal, who seems to be one of the only other people in the building who, after a sort of fire alarm incident, catch eyes through their balconies, and he drunkenly decides to knock on his door and ask to come in. And, they sort of develop this very intimate new relationship. There's a bit of a generational divide between them, and they're both sort of opening up in different ways. While this is happening, he is also through some sort of like unwinding dreamscape, heads down on the train to suburban Croydon, where he grew up, and goes to visit his parents who passed away when he was younger. And he is visiting them at the same age that he is now, almost completely untampered, unchanged from the time that they were before they died. And they're played by Jamie Bell and Claire Foy, and they are almost not, it sort of exists in a kind of dream logic where they're actually quite pleased to see him after a while, but they're not sort of acknowledging that anything has happened. It's very much like they're catching up genuinely and finding out who each other are, and that's the same way you would if you were just genuinely trying to understand who your parents were. And so the film structurally is this emotional tether between these two forces. You've got Adam being, pulling him in one direction, forcing him to confront his all sorts of unaddressed feelings about being gay and what that means, and developing this new relationship, as well as explaining his homosexuality to his parents and getting them in their old-fashioned mindset to understand it. And
conversations he was never able to have.
His parents died when he was 12. And things that I think all things about loneliness, things that were missing from his life, sort of almost trying to justify who he is now and having to explain it when he's never had the chance to. It's a deeply, deeply personal film, a very intimate experience, heavily cathartic. And I thought, I know this is adapted from a novel, but I did to do some research afterwards. I was like, how much of this is a personal story for Andrew Haigh? And I think it's obviously adapted, but Andrew Haigh, it's very personal to Andrew Haigh. They even shot in his house that he grew up in Croydon. So he's directly sort of evoking that this is a story of mine. And so, the scenes between Adam and his parents underscore this emotional connection between the direction and material. You really do get the sense that you're listening in on this like sort of group family session. It floats along and deals in a very metaphysical domain. Oftentimes people will say, I'm not even sure if this is real. And we wake up and we go to different places. I think it was just completely beautiful and heartbreaking, and I just was completely mesmerized by it. Some of my favorite scenes were when Andrew Scott had individual conversations with his mum and his dad and how different they were, and trying to get his parents to understand his identity now, and talking about loneliness. One time he has to come out to his mum, and Claire Foy is like, in this sort of very old-fashioned sense, she's like, oh, really? That's okay, and people know about it. It's like, yeah, they know about it, and it's fine. It's a little bit different now, but like, it's a very lonely life, I think, she says. And she says, well, people don't really say that anymore, and if I'm lonely, it's not because I'm gay. And sort of being confronted with loneliness in a different context is forcing him to think about how, in fact, he is lonely, but is it because he's gay? And that's like an old-fashioned stereotype, or is it just because he is lonely? I thought the main thing I thought about this idea that it's ruining the idea that time actually heals all wounds, when really, if you don't address these wounds within yourself, they will like fester and burn until you address them, and just basically tear you apart. I loved the emotional contrast between what's happening with Paul Mescal and what's happening with him and his parents, and how a new relationship can really, when you meet someone new, I think you're always confronted with their ideologies and you're then faced with yours, and you sort of test each other on ways in which you see the world. There's this different sort of dynamic of them experiencing being gay in different ways, and Andrew Scott sexually not quite in the same headspace as Paul Mescal, but I thought it was a really well balanced emotional plane for the film, and I just thought it really, really worked. It's devastating. It's completely devastating. This is what was really funny. So I saw it, like, great time to see a film. I saw it on a Friday at like 11:20 a.m. screening, which is great time to see the cinema. And I saw it at like quite a small Curzon screening, but it was fairly full. It was like 14 of us in this very small screening. And like in the last 25 minutes, it's quite funny. Like, I'm sad, and I wouldn't say I'm crying, but like I'm definitely feeling it. And in the screening, you just start to hear, just like the last 20 minutes, and I'm almost like smiling because I'm in this room with a communal sob,
which is what cinema is all about.
What cinema's all about. And I left the screening being like, ready to face the day. Performances are just fantastic and really, really well placed. It's beautiful to look at. It floats at just the right, hums at just the right frequency to get you to where you need to be. And in some of the scenes towards the end, I think if I was to criticize it, yes, I see them coming, and yes, maybe I feel like I'm in a very cathartic therapy session for someone who's writing and directing and making this film, be that Andrew Haigh, be that the novelist, be that the actors involved. But it works, and it's very, very well done, and it just left me feeling very, very enriched. And I highly recommend it if you haven't seen it. It's beautiful. Top performances, just absolutely going for it. I had a very, very strong emotional response to it, and it stuck with me.
Yeah, totally.
And it's just it gets all the awards for me.
I agree. I want to say I'm so glad you agree too, and we're just going to get on in a second to some emails from people, but like, there's something about I wanted to hug Andrew Scott in it. He had this kind of like deep loneliness, and what I've enjoyed is speaking to like my gay friends who have seen it as well about what they thought about it, because when I saw it, I also thought that scene where he first speaks to Claire Foy and he starts to have that coming out experience. I thought, oh, this is really doing something quite important, because that film is so much about because of he lost his parents when he was younger. He wasn't able to have a coming out experience, and it has affected the way he engages with being gay as part of his identity in later life. And I love that some of the conversations. This is what some of my gay friends were saying, that like the generational difference about. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong because I haven't just seen it, but like. It doesn't. Paul Mescal asks Andrew Scott if he's queer, and Andrew Scott says,
they have this conversation
he's like,
about
when I was younger, queer was an insult, and then Paul Mescal says, well, when I was young, being called gay was an insult, and like that's so interesting. And you know,
everyone has different language at different generations that's acceptable.
And you know, my gay friends have told me about that idea of the loneliness thing is really specific and really true. And it rang really true for them. I mean. Yeah, and I also know someone who is very similar to the actual character of Adam, who like lost one of his parents, and it was so uncanny, the resemblance. And I think it's wonderful. I want to talk about it in more depth. I think we'd probably want to talk about maybe the detail of it, and we'll do that in the bonus episode. But let's hear what everyone else had to say about it. Friend of the show, Honey, writes in about All of Us Strangers. She says, "Hello, my favourite filmy boys. Just a quick one from me. I write to tell you, with tears flooding down my cheeks, my eyes are stinging, I have forgotten how to breathe.
Yep.
Just this second, I have finished watching All of Us Strangers. And in capital letters, Jesus Christ, I am a wreck. An incredible film, and I can't believe Andrew Scott wasn't nominated for an Oscar for this role. Easily the best performance I've seen in a long time. Love you, Honey. P.S. Please pray that I recover from this immense heartbreak. I feel like Andrew Haigh has just ripped my heart out and stamped on it." That's from Honey. We also have...
Sorry, just like it is a very dramatic film, and the scenes that really like get you, I could have told you within the first half an hour that this scene would probably happen, but like it just manages to really get away with it, and the performances, and I think it's a really great writing as well.
Yeah,
that does it's like coming. I think in cinema as well, you talk about coming out to your parents. That's very rarely been done in that way before. Usually, it's this like, oh, I'm gay and this and that, and if you don't love me for who I am, it's just very sort of one note. Whereas this just was really like conversational and small, and
what I find quite
trying
interesting
to measure someone else's values and sort of readjust them.
I find it quite interesting that the film was heavily sold on being this kind of emotional romance between Andrew Scott and Paul Mescal, when really I'd say that's only 40% of the film. I would say it is actually predominantly about his relationship with his parents. But even on the poster, like Claire Foy and Jamie Bell are barely on it. Like they're just like a shadow in it. This email from Sam about All of Us Strangers, who he wrote in about Anatomy of a Fall, loving it, but also he says, "I have to say, All of Us Strangers took the biscuit this weekend, taking me through every emotion possible. I can safely say Andrew Scott and Paul Mescal are my favourite on-screen couple, and the scenes with Claire Foy and Andrew Scott were some of the most beautiful I have seen in a long time." We should also say beautifully shot.
Yeah, beautiful.
Stunning use of sunset and colour, and like very emotional colours. You know, with the burning orange.
Yeah, shining through. I thought they had great chemistry. Everyone has good chemistry, but Mescal, considering the romance, Mescal and Scott had very, very good chemistry. Also, and I will finish
Sam's email, but it's a film that really understands the emotional power of an 80s pop song. Like it has a really selective but particular use of music throughout, and some 90s stuff. There's like a Blur needle drop in it, but like all of the music in it, I think it was really well used and timed and brilliant. Anyway, Sam goes on to say, as someone who has lost someone close to me recently, I really connected with this movie, and it made me really think that there is never a time to leave things unsaid in any situation, whether this be towards family or friends. So well done, Andrew Haigh and team. You have, in my eyes, created the film of the year, and I would encourage as many people to see it as possible in the cinema. No question this week. Just wanted to say how much I enjoyed these two films, that and Anatomy of a Fall, and I say big thank you for bringing them to my attention. Yeah, Sam, agree. And also more. Would you like more?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Craig writes about All of Us Strangers. He says, hello, gents. Just to preface, if you do read my email on the show, my partner is okay with me speaking about him.
Okay.
As a bisexual man, I was very much prepared for this film to break my heart, as I'm a sucker for heartbreaking tales. That's why I also like, when you said, is it to our taste? Like, it's definitely, I think it is to my taste.
Yeah.
I do like, and I realized when I was watching it, I was like, this is to my taste because I like heartbreaking stuff.
Yeah.
But what I didn't expect, writes Craig, was how personal I found this story. I resonated, and many in the community will, with the loneliness and isolation felt by Andrew Scott's character.
Really well captured, I thought, that sense of like isolation in an urban environment, how that feels, even though you're amongst so many other people. Like, just like him catching the train.
Yes.
Like that nobody else has ever really shown except for one time. It's this very solitary solo thing that he does.
And also when he like eats chips in the park, when he goes back home, there's something childlike, adolescent about that. And that's when he first encounters Jamie Bell's character. Anyway, still feeling the painful loneliness as an adult that you felt as a child growing up queer is real for us all. The joke being that a mother from the 80s is asking these silly questions, but people ask you these same questions now about assuming you have a girlfriend, getting married, having kids, risk of STDs when they find out you're queer, and it can feel so isolating. The almost shame I can see in Scott's eyes at the start of the film when Paul Mescal turns up to the door broke me immediately, as I have been there, hiding my feelings out of fear and my own deep-seated shame. My second point is essentially secondhand pain. My boyfriend lost one of his parents in his early teens. We've been together for over 5 years, and he still finds it too painful to speak about even now. But when we have spoken about it, he mentions that that the regret he feels in the conversations that he never had with his mum. She never knew he was gay, and he always wonders how his life would have turned out, what she would have said, etc., had these things gone differently. Seeing this actually play out on screen was very tough, and it felt a little too real. I know he would give anything to have that conversation, and just know she's proud of who he is now. It all filled me with so much pain, love, and heartbreak for my partner, and appreciation for my own parents. Hats off to the director, writer, and all of the cast who made this feel so real and personal. Andrew Scott deserves so much recognition for this. I'm writing this having been out the cinema for less than an hour, and I'm still crying on my bed at home. Sirens on our end. The film is beautiful in every way, but please approach with caution, as it can be extremely triggering.
It'll make you want to just give your parents the biggest hug and say, "You did great. Thank you for just being here and being around."
Yeah, it's a really staggering piece of work, and in terms of Andrew Haig's director, I mentioned this when I reviewed it, but please go out and check his other work.
Yeah.
So Weekend is probably the film closest to All of Us Strangers. It takes a relationship between two guys over the course of a weekend, and the intimacy and the observations about gay life and gay identity in that film are very much, the ingredients of that are drawn very much through into All of Us Strangers. I also like 45 Years as well, which is a film I've mentioned a few times on the show. And what I'm realizing now across his work, although I've not seen Lean on Pete or his TV show The Northwater, or Looking, which is his executive produced TV show, but with 45 Years, which is about a straight couple in their 70s, is that the observation of a couple, the observation of a relationship, I see across all of his work now as being really, really apt. And in fact, like the way he captures intimacy in 45 Years, there's actually a love scene between Tom Courtenay and Charlotte Rampling. So, and I think now, I'm like, when was the last time we saw a played straight, a loving, intimate sex scene between people over a certain age? And that's brilliant. And I'm starting to realize now that Andrew Haigh kind of is becoming one of my favorite directors, because he just has a great emotional keel and sense. And I would just, again, applaud. Please go and watch 45 Years and Weekend.
It's also not enough films that sort of capture that sense of when you get to the same age your parents were when they did something.
Yes,
could be anything. So it could be when they died, or when they had you, or when they did a certain thing, and it completely reframes your understanding of what you thought they were as a kid.
Yeah,
because that's something everyone kind of goes through, and you're like, oh yeah, like.
Also, I'm interested.
I remember my dad at this age.
I can't remember if I mentioned this in my review, I haven't really kind of come to the end of this thought. I don't know what it means, but I think there's also something with the fact that Adam, the character's association with masculinity is very much stunted and locked in the 80s because of what happened with his parents. And what I mean by that is like you have this strange mirror image of mustachioed Jamie Bell and mustachioed Paul Mescal. And it's like the mustachioed man of the 80s of Frankie Goes to Hollywood would have been very present, and it informed, I don't know, Adam's perception of men in his life. I don't know, I'm really reaching here, but I think there's something there I'm trying to tease out with, and when Paul Mescal turns up with his moustache, it's like, oh yeah, you're reminding me of a...
but also repurposing it in through a modern lens and making it his own.
I think, so there are elements of the story that we'll probably talk about. Would you like to talk about it?
We can do. I mean, like, it would just be, we won't spoil it. No spoilers on the main show. We can talk about it.
I think we can, because I've had a lot of people ask me about the ending of the film.
Fine, yeah, we'll talk about it briefly in the bonus for this.
So
check that out.
Stay out for that. But as many of you have, if you've seen All of Us Strangers, please write in and let us know your thoughts to hello@pulpkitchenpodcast.com. Just go and see it. Yeah. Also, not to trivialize the whole conversation, but Andrew Scott is 47, and you would not believe it.
Great.
He looks fantastic. What a great looking man.
Some brands should be jumping all over his skincare
I think
routine.
we look older than he does.
Yeah.
We look more. I know
fantastic.
you've been ill.
I also
and I'm
think that
hungover,
he's... I've noticed, like, when you look at him from 5-6 years ago, he's had a good glow up. He's had a good little, like, getting a bit bigger.
Yeah.
Coming out of Hollywood. Like, in Sherlock, like, he looks fine. But, like, in All of Us Strangers, he looks great.
Anyway, that was All of Us Strangers.
Seen him on Radio 2 with Zoe Ball, fan of the show.
He likes knitwear like us.
He does like, but Paul Mescal too, he likes to keep it in knitwear.
Paul Mescal is very much embracing that kind of like, he has such raw sexiness. He doesn't need to actually he can make scruffy look quite stylish. If you look at Paul Mescal's style, it's very kind of whatever, scruffy. That's very insulting. I didn't mean to be like that. He's like...
But yeah, I mean, Paul Mescal can do no wrong. I think Gladiator 2 will definitely put him in the mainstream for the Americans.
And also get him out of being sad.
Yeah,
He's been sad in a lot of movies now.
I mean, Gladiator 1 was sad.
I know, but
Russell Crowe was very mopey.
But he'll be sad with a sword in his hand.
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait.
I'm all for
Sweaty, sandy, bit of blood on there.
You're not going to tell me that there's going to be a bit in this Ridley Scott Gladiator 2 where he's going to sort of cry and be sort of like, do his After Sun stuff. I don't think so, is it?
Do you think he will keep the mullet? The Gladiator mullet.
If he's got it now, then he must have kept it during filming.
And do you think they will, because I don't think they can do this, it's too much of a meme. Do you think there will be a hand floating over some like wheat fields?
I think more hand picking up the sand of the arena
and running it
through the fingers through.
Bloody hand.
How much blood has been spilled on this land?
Do you think
he won't talk like that?
Do you think he'll like shout to the crowd and...
Do you think he'll do the "Are You Not Entertained" but a different version?
Like, do you think it's going to be really formulaic?
Oh well, look,
I can't tell if it's going to be safe. We're just talking about Gladiator 2.
Sorry, we're talking about Gladiator 2. But the thing about Ridley Scott, and we talked about this with James from Raiders of the Lost podcast,
check out the podcast,
who was a big fan of Ridley Scott and really championed him.
Loved him.
I think Ridley Scott's output is declining, and he's doing
too many films.
He's made too many films, and he's making a lot of lackluster films.
I love how like most filmmakers, like there was like a gap in COVID where nobody made anything, and he's like, "What are you talking about? What COVID? I made 7 films in the last 6 years. Like I'm fine, he's thriving."
But also, I love seeing Jamie Bell and everything. Like, I just like every time I see him, like, more please, more Jamie Bell. All 4 of them, fantastic. Can't wait to see what they all do, and the director does next.
George, shall we read some of the emails that we got sent in to hello@pulpkitchenpodcast.com? The other weekend, I sat down with my family and we just flicked Bridesmaids on.
Oh, yeah.
And I already told you about this, but in my review of Anyone But You, which you can check out, I made this comment that I couldn't properly understand because I hadn't really seen it in film before, of that wedding in that film and the setting and the location, the cast and all of it feeling empty and hollow, and like there wasn't a real wedding and there weren't real people and it didn't have a sense of place and that there were actually people existing in this thing. And then I went to watch Bridesmaids, which is one of the best comedies of the last few years. And I'm watching this film, which also has a wedding in it. And I'm literally like, I hit my head and I go, this is a real wedding. There are real people here. And I actually believe that there's things happening outside of the camera frame. And there's only like 2 real big scenes, which is the engagement party and the bridal shower. And I totally believe there's everyone here and it has a real sense of place. And then I look back at Anyone But You, I'm like, yeah, that totally feels like people rented an Airbnb. And I just want to confirm my thoughts and go see the difference between Anyone But You feeling hollow. I also, while I was very sick, watched The Parent Trap with Talia. 10 out of 10 film.
Really? Never seen it.
It was. I've seen it maybe 10 times, but only
Wow.
as a kid. Lindsay Lohan should get an Oscar.
Okay.
She is brilliant in that film.
I'll watch it. I've never seen it at all.
I thought it was hilarious. It works for kids. It works for adults. It's very fantastical. Everyone's so wealthy in a fun way, and the camp that she goes on, the American camp that she goes on when she was younger, is so idyllic and like just everything you'd want from a summer camp. Sorry, I just want to throw that out there. This first email is from Aisling. Aisling writes in and says, "Hi, James and George. I've recently found your podcast and wanted to say thanks for providing me with hours of entertainment, catching up on the podcast's previous episodes.
You're welcome.
Your brilliant insight into films alongside the great banter makes for one of the best podcasts around.
Thank you.
My question for you is about childhood movies. I watched a film once when I was younger and it has had a profound effect on me. It is called Simon Birch, and despite only seeing it once when I was 7, I'm still able to recount its storyline in great detail. However, no one I know has ever heard of it and never mind watched the movie. I was wondering if there is a movie that you love that no one else remembers has never watched before. Thanks again, Aisling, your other Irish fan. Sorry, Bevan."
You know what? Simon Birch is a film that I caught the last 20 minutes of when I was a kid on TV, and I was like, what the fuck? And then I tried to read the book it's based on, A Prayer for Rowan Meany by John Irving, when I was like 15, and I was like, this is way above me. I don't know what I'm doing. But films
My answer's Home Alone 3. No one's seen it or gives it any respect, but it's great.
So there's the Merlin TV show with it was like a special with Sam Neill. Fantastic.
Yeah, so good.
Well, you've seen it?
Yeah, with Sam Neill, yeah.
You've seen that?
Yeah, like years ago.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's like a
so
TV
special. It's like an extended TV movie, really.
My dad taped it on VHS.
Oh,
I've seen it,
whenever I was ill, I would always watch that. It's
Yeah.
got Martin Short, Helena Bonham Carter, loads of people who end up being in Game of Thrones, but in this beforehand.
Really?
Yeah.
I have seen it, but
good.
I don't remember it well. But I've
I
definitely
love
seen
that. Okay, great. Next is this next email is from Harry, who says, "Hiya guys, Harry here. Just want to say, Bevan, you got this." That's because Bevan went through a heartbreak. Bevan, the sirens are out for you in a positive way.
Yeah. Oh, Parent Trap, great breakup film.
Oh, right, cool.
Great breakup film.
I wanted to write to you this week to gauge your opinions on the commercial failure of Indiana Jones and Disney in general. I was prompted to write this after James mentioned how many people were watching Dial of Destiny while on the plane to Cape Town. Yeah. A conglomerate that is used to the assembly line, worth millions of dollars, seems to be making stupid decisions recently. $300 million on a 5th installment in a franchise that was last seen 15 years ago with a film that only grossed just over $700 million and was critically panned. How has Disney come up with this ludicrous idea to spend so much on something that seems obviously a risk? Have a guess which Marvel property cost the most post-Endgame. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and that makes perfect sense. However, now guess what is the second on that list? She-Hulk. No matter what you think of this show, this is incredibly a stupid decision given the bombing of Marvel post-COVID. But Disney still went ahead with it. Madness, really. Looking at Star Wars also, there's been recently an announcement that there will be a Mandalorian film. This coming after suggestions slowing down Star Wars content really feels like an emergency move. Oh, that's an interesting term. I like that. Yeah. It's like a ejector seat decision. This just shows the vicious circle that ensues when This just shows the vicious circle that ensues when they don't know what to do with their money. I feel Disney constantly are shooting themselves in the foot and not adjusting their forecasts. I swear I remember reading a while ago that Disney thought the Dial of Destiny would break $1 billion. What the hell? They obviously thought that this with the Marvels after Captain Marvel 2, but they just didn't bother to recognize their own audiences anymore. I do feel Disney Plus has had a massive effect on Disney for the worse. Sorry for the long rant on Disney. They've just really pissed me off of late. Personally thought Dial of Destiny was awful, but that's a story for another time. Keep up the good work, fellas. Siren of the show, Harry, sent from a Power Rangers morpher.
I will say that the 4th Indiana Jones film, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, did make, I think, a lot of money, despite it being also crap. But it didn't cost anywhere near as much as, I think,
Dial of Destiny. Yeah.
Dial of Destiny cost $300 million, which is
crazy.
Insane. That's an Avengers movie with think about how many people are in an Avengers movie.
I know.
Like you're paying for Downey Jr. as well.
Yeah.
I don't understand where the money went in that film. It did not come across.
Harry, that is a really good and impassioned email, and you're right. It's illogical and
I think it's also important to remember, like Marvel, when we're sort of criticizing Marvel, like Marvel was never getting a perfect score all the way through.
No.
Like it's always been sketchy. We've always looked at certain films and be like, well, that didn't really work. Yeah. I think their best run was probably the Phase 3 lead into Infinity War and Endgame. Like you got like Doctor Strange 1, which is good, Civil War, Black Panther 1, can't remember what else, like Guardians
2. That would have been,
Yeah, like that's probably their best run. But it's never been like
Homecoming and
it's never been like a perfect score. But I just think it just doesn't feel like they are making things that they're really interested in.
No.
They're making sort of more disposable content for themselves. And I don't think the TV format, the promise, I saw this before, the promise of like a Marvel TV show is so much more exciting than what they've done.
Yeah. They've really shackled, as you say, Harry, they've shot themselves in the foot.
James writes in with the subject saying forgotten films, and he says, "Hi James and George, this is a very random one. As I was sitting alone minding my own business, I remembered the film Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time 2010 with Jake Gyllenhaal. I haven't thought about this film in over a decade and wondered what other films have completely come and gone with nobody talking about them, whether that be because they flopped at the time or just because people never cared enough. Just wondered if you had any other films just randomly pop into your head and you think, oh yeah, that movie exists. Keep up the great work. James from Aberdeen."
So
you've said
on my letterbox, I actually have I don't know if this is public, but I have a list I've been collating of forgotten films. We did it recently. We talked about salmon fishing in the Yemen and Water for Elephants.
Sorry, just before you do, can I say Prince of Persia: Sands of Time, totally not a good film. It's one of those films they look back on where they cast white actors and darkened their skin. Like Ben Kingsley has got a lot of fake tan in that film, and it's not a good film. But the game, Sands of Time, brilliant.
So yeah, in the era of streaming, there are a lot of, we talked about this before, a lot of streaming films that come out that you go, oh my God, that film exists. So there's a film from 2017 with Brad Pitt called War Machine, which just, and I remember seeing that. I was like, do you remember that film?
No.
Exactly. Okay, but in terms of cinematic releases, do you remember the 2015 Robert Zemeckis movie called Allied with Brad Pitt and Marion Cotillard?
Yeah.
Where is that film?
Wasn't that bad.
Where is it though? That's forgotten.
It's
gone.
Totally,
it's been lost. Do you remember The Rum Diary with Johnny Depp?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you remember The Legend of Tarzan with Alexander Skarsgård and Margot Robbie? And do you remember Snake Eyes, the G.I. Joe origin story with Henry Golding that came out 2021?
No.
Absolutely.
I thought you meant like
big budget bomb. That was.
Yeah. Because there's G.I. Joe, Retaliation, The Rocks.
Yeah, there were those kind of made, but these films are just there. They exist. Big films. That's the interesting is when they're a big film that didn't just disappear like vapor. Men in Black International's another one.
Yeah.
What a waste of time that was.
God, totally.
Men in Black. I think actually they've probably only made one good Men in Black film. I think.
Yeah, it's just one.
It's the first one, and it's good. I rewatched it recently. That's good.
Men in Black 2 is possible.
Yeah, and then you don't watch the third.
Men in Black 1, Will Smith really sort of breaking onto the scene, then doing Independence Day at the same time, falling in love with him. But, you know,
great theme tune.
Live long enough, see yourself become a villain, die a hero. He's fucked it.
And this next email is from a friend of the show, Honey, again, who also wrote in about All of Us Strangers. They're getting a few emails out, Honey. I like a regular listener, just like bum, emails. Honey says, writes in about Next Goal Wins, a film we haven't spoken about, we haven't reviewed. No. It was Taika Waititi's movie that came out over the weird period post-Christmas, pre-New Year kind of thing. Honey writes in to say, hello, gentlemen. This week I got to watch Next Goal Wins, Taika Waititi's new sports film. I'm a huge fan of Taika's earlier work, such as Boy, Hunt for the Wilder People, and Jojo Rabbit. I feel as though he has lost his way a little since joining Marvel. Although I hated Thor Love and Thunder, I hoped Next Goal Wins would be better. I was wrong. I found the film to be terrible. Half of the jokes written into it are at the expense of a transgender character. It made it super uncomfortable to watch, and that's true. Yeah, and there is a whole scene where the Michael Fassbender's character is dead naming the trans woman to show off his power and control over her and the football team, which I found sickening and totally unnecessary. The film is based off a true story, and apparently the real coach wasn't transphobic at all, so I find it utterly bizarre they would write this into the film. And dare I say, Fassbender's character was so unlikable, I just didn't care about him at all. I didn't laugh, I didn't enjoy it, I was so disappointed. I've officially fallen out of love with Taika Waititi. Have you seen Next Goal Wins? How do you feel about Taika Waititi's filmography overall?
I feel like Fassbender is quite miscast in that film.
Yes, with a quite fake blonde beard.
Like, he's great, and I'm not saying he can't do funny. I just mean for that film, I'm just not sure he would be the right pick.
Yeah, he doesn't screen comedy. And also, even though I believe he
can play a great comedic foil.
Yes, but I don't look at him to like shoulder a comedic film. Yeah. Also, from what I've gathered from the trailer, the coach character is kind of a washed up figure. He doesn't look washed up. He looks incredibly fit and healthy and like Michael Fassbender doing like a keto diet. Okay,
so he leans on the killer diet.
And the thing is, it's true. Like with Taika Waititi, he's one of those weird filmmakers who I think has got progressively worse or law of diminishing returns. Boy is a great film for Taika Waititi. I've banged on about that.
I feel like the louder he is, the worse he is. He should be sort of more like understated and
restrained.
funny. Like the more spoof he goes, the more I sort of
the more
wince
silly he can be. Really, the sillier he is, the less.
like Jojo Rabbit, World War II spoof,
Yeah.
Thor: Love and Thunder, Marvel spoof.
Yeah.
Remember I told you it looked like those like scary movie films.
Oh yeah,
That's what Thor: Love and Thunder felt like, but like a Marvel version. If they made superhero movie,
wow.
that's what Thor: Love
Meet
and
the
Thunder
Spartans,
would be.
but-
Meet the
but-
Spartans, that exact thing.
That's a good. Oh wow, I
Yeah.
thought about that. Thank you, honey. Given your review, I don't think I plan to watch
Yeah,
it. And what I will
unfortunately,
watch,
I just didn't hear enough good things.
what I will
just wanna
watch is
show
what the film is based on, which is the 2014
Oh, that looks
documentary
great.
called Next Goal Wins. I'd rather
Yeah.
just watch that.
Well, there you go, guys. We still have plenty of emails to read out, but in the interest of time, we will save them for another week. But if you wanted to send your emails into the show, you can do, of course, as always, by sending them in to hello@pulpkitchenpodcast.com. George, shall we end with a game?
Please.
George, as always, Pulp Kitchen ends
With a game.
with a game. Today, I have two either-ors quickfire. I'm going to
Okay.
give you two films, directors, entities, characters, foods. You've got
Got
to
it.
tell me which one in quickfire you like more. No thinking,
No
just
ifs, no
pure
buts.
gut, no judgment, ready to go. We get
do
to know
it.
a little bit more
Do
about
it.
what you like on a very quick fire basis. George, you've got 2 rounds. Are you ready?
Yeah.
George, you have to tell me which one of these you prefer. Edge of Tomorrow or War of the Worlds?
Edge of Tomorrow.
Dustin Hoffman or Philip Seymour Hoffman?
Philip Seymour Hoffman.
300 or Sin City?
Ooh, 300.
Wallace and Gromit or Chicken Run?
Wallace and Gromit.
Pierce Brosnan or Daniel Craig?
Pierce Brosnan.
Salt and Vinegar or Cheese and Onion?
Ooh, salt and vinegar.
The Shining or A Clockwork Orange?
The Shining.
James Bond or Jason Bourne?
Jason Bourne.
Tilda Swinton or Brian Cox?
The actor or the scientist?
The actor.
Tilda Swinton.
Jaws or One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest?
Jaws.
E.T. or the Ewoks? The characters.
E.T.
Argo or Django Unchained?
Django Unchained.
Both nominated for Best Picture
Picture
in
in 2013.
2013. Yeah. Argo won.
He did.
What was it? Was Ben Affleck upset that he got nominated? Well, Argo got nominated for everything apart from Best Director.
Maybe. Did he?
I think so.
Because he
that
won.
was the story.
I think also because he won Best Director at the BAFTAs, which is good. That was when the BAFTAs got things right.
Yeah.
Just gone. Anyway,
Next round. George, are
ready.
you ready? Silence on our end. You have to tell me which one of these you prefer. Ridley Scott or David Fincher?
David Fincher.
Matilda or the BFG?
The BFG.
The King's Speech or the Iron Lady?
The King's Speech.
Killers of the Flower Moon or The Departed?
The Departed.
Cheaper by the Dozen 2 or Bridge to Terabithia?
Not seen either.
Go on.
I guess Bridge to Terabithia.
Nice. Still or sparkling water?
Well, I need still, I guess, because it's applicable all the time.
Knocked Up or Superbad?
Super bad.
Nicolas Cage or Willem Dafoe?
Willem Dafoe.
Stephen Fry or Rowan Atkinson?
Rowan Atkinson.
House of Gucci or Ferrari?
Both not great. I have to go with Ferrari because I just managed to get to the end of it.
Star Trek Beyond or The Rise of Skywalker?
What's Star Trek Beyond.
Exactly.
I guess Star Trek Beyond. I think it's
Yeah,
less
probably
damaging.
edges it, yeah.
It's self-contained.
Yeah, that's it.
Wow.
your still or sparkling water answer was such a weird technical one.
Which is like
It's not about the availability or the functionality of it. It's like,
But I'm like,
some people prefer sparkling
but
water.
they serve different things. Like still water is like applicable all the time. It's thirst quenching.
Yeah,
You can
but
have a meal.
people are like at a dinner table.
I do sometimes like sparkling water. I do think it's very refreshing and it's
Fuck
very
sparkling water. It's shit.
It's not though.
Oh, it's the worst.
It's not when you have it with ice and lots of ice and a slice of lemon.
Awful. It doesn't quench thirst. It just tastes like
No, it does.
Just
It is. It
tastes like
refreshes.
a
you.
tank.
You just want
tastes
to
like
inhale it.
scuba diving.
No, it's very refreshing.
Oh, I hate
open
it.
your palate and embrace
No,
the
it's
carbonation.
awful. It's awful, and it's not because I like. I don't have it and go like, ugh, it's sparkling. It's more that I generally as a thing that's meant to be water. Fuck sparkling water.
I think it's refreshing.
Oh god.
Do you know what I don't like is flavored water. Like
no.
when I have a bottle, like just do juice.
Volvic touch of fruit. Yeah, I remember when that came out. It was I really liked it because it was like new.
Is Vittel still a water brand?
Yeah.
We've officially reached the end of the episode if we're talking about stuff like that. So let's wrap this up.
Hold on, I just wanted to ask. So you said You like Killers of the Flower Moon over The Departed?
No, I think I chose Departed because I've seen it more times. I've seen it more times, so I'm more qualified to say that.
Nice. Guys, thank you so much. Those were the games for today. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, we post new episodes of this show every single Wednesday.
And guys, we have a bonus episode coming out this week where we do spoilers for All of Us Strangers, where we also do a review of NYAD, the Annette Bening Best Actress nominated for an Oscar movie with also Jodie Foster in it. We review that. And we also review Band of Brothers. I've gone and rewatched it for the 4th time. Masters of the Air is out at the moment, but we return to what I might say is one of the best TV shows of all time.
Let us know if you're enjoying Masters of the Air, if you're watching it. I'd love to hear your thoughts as well to hello@pulpkitchenpodcast.com.
And as I've already mentioned in this episode, please continue to follow us on Instagram and TikTok and socials. We're posting new content, exciting stuff.
Non this podcast content.
There's content we film outside of the studio that doesn't go on this show that also goes on the Instagram and TikTok. So please continue to follow that. Like us, rate us, share us, subscribe us, all that stuff.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.